I'm going to invite Deepa Kannan. Deepa is our guest of honor this afternoon to do a special address from here. And then Vineet Handa, the founder and CEO of Kaizzen Communications, will join Deepa on stage in a few moments for a fireside chat of about 20 minutes. And then we'll felicitate all the winning teams that are here in the room and then move up to the fifth floor for a networking high tea. Deepa.
Good evening, everyone. And how many of you spoke to me earlier and felt that you don't have a problem with sleep when you picked up my book? Raise your hands. Don't have a problem. How many of you feel you could improve your sleep or sleep is really important? I'm actually surprised to get that answer, given that after hearing all these presentations, I felt that this group might be somebody who felt sleeplessness was a badge of honor, which we've all done at some point in time. Amit, how much time do I have? We'll see how it goes. Okay. So before getting started with the presentation, I just want to say two things. In case you don't have sleep challenges, there are two reasons why you really need to prioritize sleep. The first is if you have any sort of metabolic disorder, high cholesterol, diabetes, anything that's been abnormal on your labs. The second is what is your stress archetype? So under pressure, do you get anxiety? Do you get angry, frustrated, or do you get dejected? Who gets anxious, fearful, worries under pressure? Raise your hands. So when you're looking at the presentation, I really want you to think about Vata dosha there. Who gets frustrated, angry, throws a temper on everybody around? Raise your hands. So then you have to keep Pitta in mind or gets thrown at you. Who gets dejected, depressed during high stress? Something goes wrong, anyone gets depressed? Raise your hands. So looks like the majority here is more on the anxiety, worry, and there's a reason for that. And in fact, I must bring in what Senjam spoke about dementia, and we'll interweave that to sleep later on. So when he spoke about this large percentage of people in India who could be predisposed towards developing dementia, one of the very early signs that somebody might develop dementia is having sleep disruption, because the root of sleep disruption is aggravated Vata dosha, and dementia is a result of high Vata dosha. So let's start with the presentation. And as you can see, I just want to go to this slide first. So I practice two opposing fields which are called functional medicine and Ayurveda. So ancient wisdom and cutting edge science. Now, both these fields, just like Shivani spoke about three pillars, there are three pillars to all health. In functional medicine, it's having regulated blood sugar, it's having good sleep, and it's having smooth elimination. In Ayurveda, it's good food, but it's very personalized to each person. It's sleep, and it's brahmacharya, which doesn't mean celibacy, in case that's what you've related to it. So if you can see that this common area for both these is sleep. So sleep plays a pivotal role in everything. And I'm just going to go back here. So if you can see, the sleep is bidirectional with many symptoms, and we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail. It's unique based upon body constitution. We'll go into that. And it's also based upon the present state of imbalance. And somebody asked me a question, I think it was Vineet, whether there were sleep differences in men and women, and that's absolutely a resounding yes. Okay, so some of the symptoms of poor sleep are digestive distress. So if you're not sleeping for many days in a row, there's something called ghrelin in the body, which is the hunger hormone. So it starts to elevate. And so you won't realize, and when you haven't slept, without you realizing, you'll go to the pastry counter, you're going to pick up the croissant. So everything that's really high in sugar, you'll reach for it. And that's not really your mind, but that's the biochemistry that's feeding that behavior. Poor gut motility. So anyone has constipation, raise your hand. Sorry to ask this question. It's too shy. So I don't know if you've heard about something called leaky gut. Everyone has constipation. Who doesn't have? Okay, so I don't know if you've heard about the term leaky gut. Has anyone heard of the term leaky gut? So gut inflammation, it's a big word that's being used all over, and there are more and more medical practitioners who are understanding that there is a connection between an inflamed gut and every single condition, including cancer, including Alzheimer's, dementia. So when there's inflammation in the gut, a lot of times that it starts to feed this cascade of inflammation throughout the body, which can show up as symptoms on your body, or it can show up as imbalance in the labs. But all of these needs to be picked up before they get diagnosed as a condition. So you might think that you don't have any condition today, but in Ayurveda, there's the belief that we go through 6 stages of disease, and it's only in stage 5 and 6 that medical practitioners will label you as having a condition, and it's already gone too far to reverse. So you need to pick it up in those earlier stages, and simple symptoms that you're going through can reveal all of this. Oxidative stress is what is referred to when you eat food and it's converted in the cells to energy, and it creates something called free radicals. And you need antioxidants to mop up these free radicals. Basically, it's that you're trying to fight aging or slow down aging. And there's a lot of buzzword out there today on longevity. So I'm sure you might have come across in social media the talk of longevity, and everyone wants to look younger for longer. So I'm pretty sure that's something that we can use as intention, because we all want to feel that way. So I know that we spoke a little bit about autoimmunity earlier in one of the presentation with Biocon. Autoimmunity is got a very unique perspective in Ayurveda, that if we've got weak Agni, where our appetite digestion is imbalanced, we produce something called ama or toxins. When this ama goes into deeper tissues, our body tries to clean it up, and it sets an immune reaction, which modern day calls autoimmunity. So the root of preventing autoimmunity still lies in the gut. And of course, anxiety, mood related, I asked you right at the beginning. So in Ayurveda, sleep issues happen when there's something called high vata dosha. I'm going to talk a little bit about the doshas next. And it is the same high vata dosha which causes anxiety, worry, and you'll be surprised that the majority of people who come to me as clients are already on anti-anxiety medications when they don't really need it. So some of the root causes of poor sleep, I'm not going too much into this, because for those of you who picked up the books, that miraculous 10-step protocol actually goes really deep into all of this. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the 3 doshas. How many of you know that we have 3 doshas, vata, pitta, kapha? Raise your hand. Are you aware of what these doshas are, or is it just something that's there in the back of your mind? Okay, so if we were to connect it, first of all of us have all 3 doshas, and they come together in different ways. So when they come together in a particular combination at birth, it's called a prakriti. So we could be predominantly one with a secondary another dosha. But at every moment in time, we could have imbalance in all three doshas, which is called a vikriti. If we were to relate this to science and our body, I think it's easier to understand. Vata excess is something, if you've ever heard of sympathetic dominant state, fight or flight, where high adrenaline, inability to slow down, we're thinking we're always under a state of emergency. At one point, it was running from the tiger. Today, it's about delivering, like Amit put somebody under pressure to say, give me a better presentation by 9 o'clock. That's also pushing somebody into that fight or flight. Oops, Amit. So it could be our mother-in-law coming to stay with us, but the fact is that there's so many stressors out there today, and all of this pushes up into this fight or flight state when we're not able to calm down. This is what Ayurveda called as a high vata state. Now, high vata is exactly what is sleep disruption. So if we will look at it from an Eastern point, it is high vata that drives sleep disruption. So I'm not going into this. You can get the book to really see these root causes of poor sleep. There are several factors that come into play when assessing somebody for sleep issues. And even if you don't have sleep challenges, before I just run through this, I must say that we're living in a vata age of life. What I mean by that is that compared to maybe 2 decades ago, we are definitely far more stimulated, and therefore the texts say that we need to figure out what are the new factors imbalancing us. One of these is that we're in this vata age of life. So whether we are vata prakriti or whether we are having vata imbalance, we're all being bombarded by factors that imbalance vata dosha. And if we can't calm that down, we're not just going to have sleep issues, but we're going to develop mood disorders like anxiety, which will in older age result in more serious challenges such as dementia. So I just want to run through these. First of all, there's a body constitution. I was just watching the room, and I'm sorry, I felt like such a voyeur doing that. But when I was watching the room through the presentations, usually you can have clues as to who's got a predominantly vata constitution. Usually if it is where there's something going on and you're multitasking, so you're looking at the phone, you're sending emails, you got one ear on the presentation doing something else. All of this is a very high vata constitution. So it's a tendency to do, tick off from the list until the point where you crash and burn. Seasonal effect. Does anyone know that in particular seasons you could have sleep disruption? Anyone? Which season have you heard about this? That might be true, but overall, whether it's scientific or ancient wisdom, the fact is that cold seasons predispose us towards sleep disruption. From a scientific perspective, that's because in the cold season, vitamin D levels really crash, and that impacts sleep very quickly. Do you know why vitamin D low levels impact sleep? I must share this with you. So vitamin D is something that is a code. It tells the gut microbiome to synthesize B vitamins. When the vitamin D signals the gut microbiome to make B vitamins, it then signals the body to produce something called acetylcholine. Does anyone know what is acetylcholine? Acetylcholine is the key that opens the parasympathetic nervous system. So just as adrenaline fires up the sympathetic state where it keeps us alert, fight or flight, acetylcholine tells us the emergency is over, you can calm down and switch off. So if you're unable to slow down at night, heart racing, it means there's a low level of acetylcholine. The location, so again, just as the season I spoke about, that cold weather can cause sleep disruption, living in a cold place, living in a dry place. So have you, living in Bangalore versus Chennai. So Chennai has a humid weather, Bangalore has really dry weather. That's actually a big input that's tipping all of us in dry weather into sleep disruption because it's a vata aggravating location. And then, of course, present state of imbalance, food habits. I don't want to go into that because I'm sure I'll be opening a Pandora's box. And helping sleep overall, of course, there's a lot more. I must just share one thing is that there are a lot of sleep books out there, and why did this book get acquired is, for one, it's the intersection of East and West, although the book has been called pseudoscience by some of the West. If you go into sleep books and if you go into sleep physicians, everybody is saying the very same thing, that sleep disruption needs something called CBTI, which is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is basically reframing the mindset. So if you're got into a state of stress, worrying about why you're not sleeping, you're just telling yourself and changing that, where the bed is no longer a space that's triggering that stress. Nobody is looking at what are the physiological factors that are disrupting sleep, and they're absolutely multifactorial and they're unique to every single person. So how can we create a framework where each and every one of us can understand where is our unique state of imbalance? Even if you don't have sleep issues, if you have something like excess worry, fear over situations, anxiety, all of these are signs that you really need to restore some balance. So just to conclude this presentation before our conversation is that if you have no sleep challenges, great, keep prioritizing sleep. If you do have sleep challenges, really keep it in mind that it's a very early sign of a lot more serious challenges. So it's important to really prioritize sleep. While we need to keep our intelligence stimulated, we also need to have clear switch-off times, which I think Vineet and I may talk about. That for me, it's 5 p.m. My computer, phone, everything is switched off till 5 a.m. I don't care who's trying to reach me. Maybe that's not possible for all of you. That's perfectly fine. But what's really important is that you set your personal zone where nobody can cross that boundary. So if you decide it's 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., nobody can reach you, and it's up to you to communicate that to whoever it is so that that boundary can never be breached.
Namaskara, Bangalore. Nanaka Kannada gottilla. Yeah, probably I left this line some 25 years back and it still works, so good. So guys, probably the toughest session I'm gonna have as a fireside chat, trying to figure out, few pickups. For me, it was as good as AI, generative AI and things like those because, it was a different science. But I didn't know till now, which is sort of one of the most important question in interviews, that are you a multitasker, is a vata dosh. If you're a multitasker, you have a problem. Yeah, I didn't know that. So next time, be wary to ask that question. So that's one takeaway from what you spoke, ma'am. The other thing which I wanted to start with and I wanted to sort of bring in, she spoke about three doshas. I think there are 2 or 3 doshas which I wanted to add. One is this whole digital dosha, right? Which is one big reason, right? Second is this whole stress dosha. She gave a small example of that stress dosha, Amit, right? The third dosha, which I would say, because we deal with a lot of millennials and zillennials and blah, 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 I feel relationship is another big dosha, right? So I think there are a lot of these doshas which I would want to talk about rather than going really deeper into, the math of or the Ayurveda of it or the science of it. What are, to start with, three things the people sitting in this room who can't understand the Ayurveda, but sleep is important. So what are the three basic things we should look at?
I think the first is what I spoke about, having that boundary to switch off, and it might be different to each of us, but it's really important that we internalize that time and we don't allow anybody to breach that boundary. So that's really critical, because it's very easy to get pulled into that. It's just today, I need to stay up, I need to finish, and that can just fuel into so many things. So if you have a clear cut time, you need to just stick to it no matter what. Nobody comes there. Think of it as attending your child's graduation. You're not going to miss that for any reason, are you? So it's very similar to that. This is about caring for your body. The second, when it comes to supporting our sleep, is that we have some practice of daily regulation for our nervous system. One of the things I got Vineet from another Vineet, actually, who's a big corporate head, and he said to me, Deepa, I've been under so much pressure the last few days, none of your guided meditations are working. Now, under this high state of stress, nothing's going to work. Basically, what we're doing when we do some practice, be it even 10 minutes every single day, is we are developing a muscle to withstand stress under different situations. So my simple advice to most of my clients is, sometime between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m., you're probably going to be at work. Take 10 minutes, lie down on the ground in Shavasana, close your eyes, and just feel your belly rise up and down. It's so powerful to calm down the nervous system by feeling this entire back surface of your body grounded. And Vineet, there's a lot of talk today about biohacks, and you hear yesterday someone messaged me saying, which grounding mat do you suggest? And I said, nothing, I suggest the ground. So we really don't need to spend on those things. We don't need those, we don't need technology to teach us to train our nervous system. We definitely have every single thing we can do right in the comfort of our own home. So I would say, even if it's 10 minutes every day is far superior to going to Vipassana once a year, for sure. So that's how you build that muscle memory, so to speak. The third is to always ensure that you don't have digestive challenges. And the reason for this is that, a lot of melatonin is the highest over-the-counter supplement sold today. And we really don't need that, because it's then telling our endocrine feedback loop that we don't need to secrete melatonin. So all we need to do is have a really healthy gut, because most of the serotonin is produced in the gut. So don't ignore, and I always share this with a joke, because when I met my husband, one of the jokes he made to me was that my entire family didn't inherit any money, but we inherited gas issues. So this was funny at the time, but later came to realize that it's not just a fart or a burp, it's a sign of chronic gut distress. So don't ignore any digestive challenges. Make sure that you get to the root of that. And one of the simplest way to do that is to just eat food that you've grown up eating. Skip the green smoothies, skip the salads, just eat like you've grown up eating.
Interesting. Everything goes back to gut. We probably in North India have heard this quote, "Ghode bech ke so raha hai." And it was so true, yeah. The symbol of ghode bech ke sona is because selling a horse was the toughest thing. And it's a hard work which symbolizes that he's done so much of hard work and therefore he's sleeping. Now, I'm flipping this question. There's a lot of conversation around work-life balance, which is, say, 10 to 6, and thanks to one of the biggest person from this city talked about 70 hours work culture, and things like those. So I wanted to pick your brains. I am of a school that hard working gives you a good sleep. One kind act every day will give you a good sleep, and things like those, which are very, very important, right? What do you think about that as a concept?
I think we have to really break down what is hard work we need. So, back then it might have been working in the fields or doing physical activity. Today it's the other way down where we're stimulating our senses. And I know you didn't want to talk Ayurveda, but I must bring this up because it is said that Pitta rules the eyes, but Vata controls the movement of the eyes. So if you ever see somebody scrolling Instagram, if the finger moves pretty slowly, they've got a pretty regulated nervous system. But if they are Vata aggravated or the nervous system is imbalanced, they're going to scroll super fast. That finger will keep moving so quickly that...
Do you do Instagram test?
No, I don't. I should, though. But what I'm trying to say is that the eyes are considered a doorway into the nervous system. So be it social media, be it changing channels, it's always important to make sure that that movement is controlled and not rapid finger first, because the eye movement, when it's absolutely fast, can imbalance the nervous system. So since most of our work today is that way, where it's not physical activity, we are absolutely stimulating our senses all the time. Instead of that work driving us to naturally have sleep drive at night where we can fall asleep, it's the other way around, where we're not able to slow down the nervous system and fall asleep. So if you're able to get to bed, lie down and fall asleep in 10 minutes, great. If you're not able to do that, it definitely requires some intentional practice.
So again, coming back to that hard work thing, unfortunately, we do not have other options. So that means physical activity is something which definitely helps to sort of improve your sleep.
That's a great question. Let's just divide that into some nuances. The first is yes, absolutely. That's why there's an entire part on exercise. Exercise releases something called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotropic factor. And BDNF is also required for us to have longer time in slow wave sleep, which is deep stages of sleep. So when we walk, when we swim, when we do yoga, we have released BDNF, which can help us at night. It also, there's one more thing involved there, that when we do any form of exercise, initially our core body temperature goes up, which means we get warmer inside. Post that, the body tries to restore homeostasis by then cooling itself down, and we need a low core body temperature in order to fall asleep. So therefore, yes, exercise is absolutely great for good sleep. However, there's definite signs that somebody who's very imbalanced in the nervous system, who maybe is really tired, but they get to bed and they're anxious, they're thinking about all their problems, those kind of people will have extreme sleep disruption when they do rapid forms of exercise such as running and HIIT.
So I have a last question and then probably one or two questions from the crowd. So I was flying to Bangalore and I had a fortune to sit with an IT geek from New Jersey who's from Tiruchirappalli. And he said he spent almost a month in Tiruchirappalli and sort of traveling all over. And he said one of the things which was very alarming for him this time when he was in Tiruchirappalli, that there is a fertility clinic in each of the streets in Tiruchirappalli. Each of the main roads, there is a fertility clinic. And we know Tiruchirappalli is a very small, probably cat C city for all of us, right? And the other thing he spoke about, that there are mental health doctors talking about men. So these two things which we talk about, and while you were talking about it, I've completely thought that sleep probably is one of the core, probably if not the core reason, but is a very important part of cure or probably managing these two things.
I think that's a really big question which we have to divide into mental health and fertility. So I did talk about stress archetypes at the beginning, that we all have an archetype where under stress we either become anxious, angry, or depressed. This really tells us a lot about what's going on inside of us and how we should be targeting that mental health. And it's very interesting that while not all of us may understand the depth of Ayurveda, it's really inspiring to see that Nimhans today has an Ayurvedic expert who's integrating this into mental health care. That you can't have somebody diagnosed or as needing anger management without calming down pitta dosha. We can't put somebody on anti-anxiety medication without calming vata dosha. And we can't put people needlessly on antidepressants without calming down kapha dosha. So it's very interesting to see that there is a connection, and absolutely there's a link between sleep and mental health. That's a vast topic, I think, mental health, which can take an hour to dissect. But coming back to fertility in Ayurveda, and I'll put this in a scientific perspective so it's easier to correlate, that it is said that Agni, we've got Agni, it's not just in our digestive tract. Agni is something that is there in our cells, what is today called cellular health. Everything is Agni. And Ayurveda describes different states of Agni. Now, if we have there are only two ways Agni works. Either it's balanced or it's imbalanced. If it's imbalanced, not only do we don't have a way to absorb nutrients because the body is not breaking down even great food that we eat. Second, we produce something called ama, which is toxins, and it goes anywhere. So for somebody, it could be a swollen knee. For somebody, it could be sinus issues. So lots of symptoms. If Agni is balanced, then it produces two compounds called the essence part and the waste part. The waste allows us to detoxify every single day. The essence part feeds 7 tissues in order. So first it feeds the blood plasma, then it feeds the blood, then the muscle, the fat, the bone marrow, the bone marrow, and the last tissue to be fed is something called Shukra Dhatu, which is the reproductive tissue or the hormones. So if fertility issues are really rising, it's because people are having really imbalanced Agni. And it's not allowing nourishment to reach that last layer of tissue. So the answer is not just willy-nilly fertility treatments, but getting to the root of digestive health.
I spoke about these two issues purposely because I see there's a mental health challenge we all are facing in our organization some way or the other, and I could see that there is a solution which is not straight away getting into the counseling or going for the treatments or antidepressants, and that's how this question came in. And it's a very strange thing, while I was talking to her earlier, when we were young, sleeping less was a quality, that you're a hardworking, you study a lot and things like those. You realize later that no, it's not. It's something which is a bad habit. But I think we've been taught that on our early days. Somebody's waking up at 4 a.m. and studying, or somebody's studying till 2 a.m. in the night. And so that's how you consider that the kid is a very studious kid and he works hard and things like those. But I don't know if you see those patterns somewhere that has spoilt our lifestyles when we grow up.
I don't think so. I think even with all that, we would still fall asleep. Sleep issues have only been on a rise in the last decade. It's very clear that there's a lot more sleep physicians required. There's a lot more people taking over-the-counter sleeping pills, which happens only in India because you can do that. And for sure, sleep disruption is linked to the age of technology.
Thank you very much, and thanks Amit once again to bring in a topic which is so different and definitely not comms, impacting comms for sure. But yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you.